Welcome, friends. It's good to have you with us today. I'm delighted to have Rajat back with us today. We've had him on at least once before that I can recall, and it was a very interesting and deeply profound philosophical discussion that a lot of it may have gone over my head, but Rajat is especially gifted and studious from a philosophical perspective, and to me, it's part of the arsenal, if you will, that we bring to bear on this discussion of universal reconciliation or Christian universalism is definitely there's a theological side, a biblical side, but there's a philosophical side, which I believe is important. And I think, and a lot of people I think go astray with this because they maybe refer to Paul talking about, the philosophies of the world, the vain philosophies, and they think that it's just a wholesale disregard of anything that bears the name of philosophy. But I don't think that was Paul's intention at all. And in fact, I think Paul's own perspective was philosophically informed. There are lots of hints about that in his writings. So philosophy just means love of wisdom. And the Bible tells us that Jesus Christ is the wisdom of God. So I think the love of wisdom, when it's channeled in this direction, can bring us to a greater, deeper, more profound understanding of who we are, who God is, what is this world that we live in. And I was a minor in philosophy in college and found it very intriguing. And it has helped me, I believe, throughout my years. So I'm just delighted, excuse me, to have Rajat joining us again today. And
Mm.
I wanted to begin, Rajat, by just asking you if you would just kind of bring us up to date, as it were, on your spiritual journey so far and some recent developments that have occurred in your life and in your heart. So I just want to turn it over to you to get a response to that for beginners.
Yeah, yeah. So, right now I consider myself a confident Christian Universalist. I do believe David Bentley Hart is like a huge part for that.
Yes.
Um, I think David Bentley Hart's rhetoric is fantastic. I think he's very, very good, very confident, fearless,
Yes.
right? Absolutely wonderful. Um, when we had a chat before, right? After that, for a while, I went to Hinduism, right? Back to Hinduism, I guess you could say.
Yes.
But I always thought like Christian Universalism was always like close. They were always close to each other, and I was like flip-flopping, a bit. Like, if is this the correct view? Is this the correct view? And I think I just found that um, Christian Universalism, right, is just is just better, right? It just made more sense, right? It's because God suffers with us, right? On the cross. He suffers with us, right? It's a profound thing, right? A very profound thing, you know. So and he defeats death and suffering, right? And along with that, there were I had philosophical issues with uh, karma system and rebirth amnesia in like Hinduism, and that was something that bothered me. And I did talk with one of my favorite Hindu philosophers right now. He's also young, by the way. His name is Akshay Gupta. I think he's a great Hindu philosopher right now. He's in United States, I think. I think he's in the academy right now, academic philosopher. So he did say that, yeah, that's a problem, right? That's a problem in Hinduism, well, eternal hell is a problem in Christianity, right? So, so yeah, it is a problem, and yeah, and I think he said he considers that problem to be a serious problem, and he has his own responses. He finds those responses plausible. I don't find those responses that plausible, I suppose, right? So I just found that ultimately, yeah, Christian Universalism is the best view, you know. I have sympathies with Eastern Orthodoxy and some parts of Reformed tradition.
Mm.
Uh,
Really.
Yeah.
Well, I'm especially interested. You piqued my interest there because I come from a Calvinist background.
Yeah.
I no longer consider myself a Calvinist, but I do believe that what I, in a sense, brought over from Calvinism was its emphasis on an acknowledgement of the sovereignty of God, that ultimately, in a way that doesn't, I believe now at least, doesn't violate our agency, that God is still able and has the power and the ability to bring about his perfect will. So how would you say there are that in a sense plays into your current understanding of
Yeah. Um, so I think there is something called monergism in Reformed theology
yes.
and a doctrine of I think corruption, right? I think that is now of course I interpret corruption in different way because what I loved about Reformed theology is I think its double predestination makes sense ultimately,
Hmm.
right? So like Calvinists who believe in eternal hell, some of them like still say that yeah, human beings are free and God is like free. And I mean like the general Calvinism is does believe in like eternal hell, right? Just some people are elected, some are elected to damnation,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Um, I just say everybody is elected to for heaven eventually, right?
Right. Right.
Um, some will go through longer journey, right? Some will go through harder times,
Right.
but they eventually all shall go to heaven,
Yeah.
right? That's my view, right? I do believe in some sort of punishment in the afterlife, right? I think all universalists, pretty much all, I guess, believe in some sort of purgatorial punishment in the afterlife, right? Some sort of temporary hell,
Yes.
right? Of course, there were I think early universalists believed in like very long temporary punishment, right? Like ages upon ages, million trillion years or something. And I think that's a bit too much. That's just too much. I believe punishment will be there, but it won't be it won't be like over punishing,
Uh-huh.
right? It
Right.
won't be like it won't be like cruelty, right? Because when you punish too much, I think that is cruelty.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
I
agree.
think you only punish enough so that the victims feel a sense of catharsis, right? The victims are satisfied, those who were harmed,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So to me, the punishment would scale with the amount of suffering or harm the victim has suffered,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, another thing I love about Calvinism, I guess, they are compatibilist about free will.
Right.
So they would say that, yeah, everything is determined, but still we have free will, right? Now, I don't believe that. I don't believe that anyone has free will. I think it's a bit of a confusing word, right? And by free will, I meant to say free will in that basic desert sense of like blameworthiness, praiseworthiness, right? And stuff like that,
Right.
right? Where people deserve suffering, right?
Yeah.
Even if no one benefits.
Yeah.
Even if no one benefits, the person deserves suffering.
Right.
Even if the victim will not be satisfied, even if the victim will not get like catharsis or anything, um, the punishment still needs to be dealt,
Mm.
right? So I don't believe free will in that sense, right? I think There are philosophers, respected philosophers like Dirk Pereboom and Greg Caruso.
Mm.
They have done great work in arguing against libertarian free will and also compatibilist free will.
Yeah.
Right? They call themselves hard incompatibilist. That means that they and free will skeptics, they call themselves, right? That means that they would say whether indeterminism is true, whether determinism is true, free will does not exist,
Mm.
right? And a simple way to think about this is just think about like God, right? If you and this relates to, by the way, I think voluntarism some way or divine command theory. But let me like quickly explain like why I don't believe in like free will, right? So when we think about God, right, and suppose God, suppose, right, again, suppose this is imaginary, this is
Right.
not, I think, what God would do.
Right.
But suppose that God creates an innocent 10-year-old child, right? That child lives for like 30 seconds, right? That child is happy for 30 seconds, 30 seconds. And then just immediately starts burning the child.
Mm.
And he burns the child for 5 years and then kills the soul of the child,
Mm.
right? Just destroys the soul, annihilates the child,
Right. Right.
right? Permanently.
Yeah.
Christians would say, I think Hindus, any theist would say God shall not do that.
Hmm.
It is guaranteed that God shall not do that.
Mm.
Right? It is impossible given God's absolute perfection
Hmm.
that God does such a horrifying thing to a child.
Right.
Right? Now, divine command theorists, on the other hand, or the voluntarists, would have to say, well, whatever God does is good, right? And no matter how much nuance you add, they have to say whatever God does is good.
Yeah.
The way they try their best to get around that, like if they really want to like say that God shall not do that to innocent child, the reason they say is that, well, God is loving. God is still loving.
Yeah.
But the issue is like, look, if you do not believe that love is a great making property, right? Love or compassion is something of a perfection, right? If you don't believe that, right, then it would be hard.
Hmm.
And they generally go about justifying eternal hell and those things, and perhaps even that child's torture. The way they go around is that they redefine love.
Hmm.
That is that is not tethered to reality.
Hmm.
So, and this pretty much happens like always, right? When you ask them, how can a loving being torture people forever or kills the souls of some people,
Hmm.
right? And they would say God's love is not our love, right? But that is, as John Stuart Mill would say, that is no different than saying God is not good.
Right.
That is no different than saying God is not good, because the issue comes is this, right? We have something real. We are experiencing something real. You can call it love. You can call it love. You can call it hate,
Yeah.
right? You can redefine that word to mean hate. But the real experience is still there, right? The relationships, the compassion, the empathy, the
Mm.
kindness,
Right.
they're all there,
Yeah.
right? And if someone wants to make up the meaning of the word love to suit their interpretation of God, to justify eternal hell, eternal torture, and all that stuff, right? They can redefine it if they want, but it would be meaningless,
Yeah.
right? Would be meaningless. It would not be something that anybody cares about,
Yeah.
right? That only those care about who want to defend those particular traditions that they um, that they believe in, I guess, you know.
Right.
So so ultimately it's yeah, it's like ultimately I don't believe Wayne, that you can justify eternal hell. And I think hopeful universalists should just be confident universalists. Michael Ree also said this, I think, in his paper, Hopeful Universalism. He goes into like he's a fantastic philosopher, right? He's such a brilliant philosopher. He's the philosopher who wrote a book on the problem of divine hiddenness.
Hmm.
And in my view, he solved the problem of divine hiddenness,
Now,
right? So,
what's the name again?
the name of the book is literally The Problem of Divine Hiddenness.
The name of the author,
The
Michael
author is Michael Ree.
Reed, or Reed.
REA. Michael Ree.
Okay, thank you. And make a
Yeah, I think you will love the book. I think your audience will love the book, Wayne. Um, Michael Ree is a universalist. I think I did talk to him. Oh no, so I think the book is called The Hiddenness of God. Can I share my screen? I can
sure,
quickly show.
please.
Yeah.
Do I have to give you permission to do that or something?
Yeah, let me. Yeah, I requested.
Okay, yeah, I'm just clicked allow.
Okay, great, great. So, great. This is the book, right? Um, The Hiddenness of God, Michael C. Ree.
Oh,
The
okay.
fantastic book.
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar. It's good to know.
Yeah, yeah. I think your audience will love it. You will love it, right? And Michael Ree also has a paper on hopeful universalism, and he basically says that hopeful universalism is unjustified view, right? You should either just accept that God like, allows eternal hell, or you
Yeah,
should be a full universalist. So this is like Michael Ree, and this is the abstract of the article,
yeah.
right? This article argues against the rationality of hopeful universalism,
Hmm.
the components of which include the unconditional considered hope that soteriological universalism is true, and an absence of belief that it is true.
Mm-hmm.
Some proponents maintain that there is simply not enough evidence to affirm or deny universalism. Others believe that it is probably false, but nonetheless hope they are mistaken. This article argues that worshippers of God who maintain unconditional considered hope in the truth of universalism ought either to believe universalism or seek to abandon their hope in its truth,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So again, fantastic philosopher. It's the article is, I think, free to read.
Hmm.
Alvin Kimmel
Oh, okay.
saved that article, right?
Great.
So it's a great work, you know, ultimately. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I believe that the sympathies that I believe that the sympathies I have with Calvinist is more about free will, determinism, and corruption. And the way I interpret corruption is basically um, as like the human inability to do much good in the
Hmm.
world, right? We have a kind of weakness of will, you
So,
know.
is that equivalent to what I'm more familiar with is total depravity?
Yeah, no, no.
Oh,
I guess total depravity seems a bit too much sometimes. I think it's just it is not that plausible. But I would say that corruption. I interpret corruption to mean that human beings do have the ability to do good, but they cannot do a lot of good, right? They have a lot of
where the Calvinists would disagree to me though is that no, they can't do any good.
oh
So,
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
that's the thing.
especially as it were from the heart, they can do good to to show other people how quote how good they are or that sort of thing. But yeah, I know within again having been a Calvinist for over 15 years, I know that there are diversity of explanations of all the quote 5 points of Calvinism, and
Yeah, yeah,
total depravity kind of gets like, well, every part of your being is corrupted by sin. But I'm sure there are probably some Calvinists out there who would say that still doesn't mean you can't do good or even want to do good. Maybe they would say that. I'm not
yeah,
totally convinced, but
yeah, yeah,
anyway, yeah, that's interesting. I have a couple of other questions though, just from what you said that I would like to get clarification about. And one is about punishment and in a sense the purpose of punishment, say in
yeah,
the afterlife especially. Uh, but the other is back to the issue of free will. I have said many times, I'm sure, that free will it is a fiction, that no one has free will. I mean, especially if you take the words and press them very literally, it's like
yeah,
free will is not free from influences. It's
yes,
constantly subjected to influences.
yes,
You're
that's
not
absolutely right.
you're not free, and you will not simply make a rational decision to reject God and to embrace eternal hell if you're rational. But we're prone, as I think you're saying, our proclivity, our leaning is toward, maybe most of the time, in some respects, of being irrational or not even considering the rationality of a decision, but whether it
Yeah,
feels good or not. That's more of our motivation often than not. But what I want to, because I think you basically said, if you didn't say there is no free will. And
yes,
I know that many people listening probably would kind of be taken aback by that statement.
yes, I know, I know.
But I think rightly, at least again, the way I understand it, is again that it's just a bad label for what I do believe is a kind of agency that that we have in some, I don't know, almost like I don't want to use the word freedom, but in some respects, it's not a compelled uh, uh, behavior. And especially, and here's my main point that I wanted to get to,
Yeah,
especially in contrast to Calvinism. The Calvinists, at least the traditional Calvinists, 5 point Calvinists, believe that everything you do is decreed by God.
yes,
It was
absolutely.
decreed. It was decreed by God before you did it.
We did it.
Even
Yeah,
though you may, in some a sense of Molinism, it might be a cooperative or, a coordinated kind of action, but still it's fundamentally rooted in God's decree of what you do,
yes,
and not in your working with God on the matter, as it were. Whereas
yes,
my perspective now is not, I do not believe, and I could be wrong, but I hope from a scriptural scripture soaked perspective, and I know Calvinists claim to be scripture soaked as well, but I think taken on the whole that I've come to believe, after having sort of relented and repented from my Calvinism, that yes, God could create a world that he meticulously controlled every molecule and atom. He could
yes,
do that easily. But
yes,
what if God, and of course to me it casts it in a higher, more mystifying frame. What if God chose to make a world that he did not control meticulously? And wherein, because he's sovereign, he can step into any scenario and do his pleasure. So,
yes,
but so applied to our human agency, there's a way in which we are free, although we're probably in bondage more than we're free in
yeah,
terms of to our sinful nature, our fallenness, et cetera, et cetera. Those things are profoundly influential on us every moment. But there is a kind of moral agency that we do possess. It's just that it's misleading to call it free.
Yes.
Would you agree or disagree? I know I didn't describe it very well, but
Yeah. So I would say like um compatibilism. I think your view could be considered a form of compatibilism.
so,
I would say compatibilism is compatible with my uh, metaphysical view called necessitarianism,
uh-huh,
right? And necessitarianism simply means that absolutely everything, every event in the world is necessary, right? Um, Ibn Sina, he was an early Islamic philosopher who influenced, I think, Thomas Aquinas.
uh-huh,
Ibn Sina was a necessitarian. Baruch Spinoza was a necessitarian, right?
right.
Recently, another philosopher, Amy Korofsky, she's a necessitarian, and basically she has a big book arguing that there is no such thing as could have done otherwise,
Uh-huh,
right? There is no such thing as alternate possibilities, right? This is the only way the world is or could be,
yeah.
right? This is the only reality. There are no other possibilities, right?
So
So
what is it that determines the decision if I choose chocolate ice cream?
yeah, what is it that
What
determines decision, right? Decisions or like
right,
and choices, right? Options, like
right.
so it's the nature of the being that decides it. So for example, consider God. It is God's absolute perfection that determines God's actions, God's dispositions, God's feelings, right? Like similarly, this is it's same for the nature of human beings, right? uh, Consider something like love, Wayne. Love and compassion are something that is automatic for normal human beings, right? We don't, we, we normally or spontaneously react with compassion or with sadness when something horrifying happens to someone,
Yep,
right? It's automatic. That's interesting.
right,
Um, Now, if you compare that to a psychopath, right, a person with extreme antisocial personality disorder,
right.
it is interesting that the psychopath has the ability to switch on or off their empathy.
Mm,
So it's like they have more libertarian free will,
right.
right, than a human being,
Yeah.
right, than a normal human being, right? So, and this is one reason I think like we should not like believe in this libertarian free will and like this free will view because something has gone horribly wrong if you think that God is equivalent to a psychopath, where God can freely choose to feel love, to feel compassion, and to love humans, right? He can just freely choose to love someone.
Yes.
But love is beautiful when it is
Mm,
spontaneous, it is automatic,
right.
right? Right? That's the beautiful thing about compassion, love, right? Like if someone saved my life, right? If I was depressed and I tried to, commit suicide, and if someone saved my life out of their instinct,
Right.
and I asked them why did they do that, if they answered, I just could not see you die, I just did, right?
Yeah.
It was automatic. I just did. I want, like, if someone said that, versus if someone said, I freely decided to save your life,
Yeah.
I would like the person who said, I just did,
Yeah.
rather than
I had
I
to.
freely did. Right? Like,
Right.
I would feel more safe around that person because it's in the nature of the person, right? That person is a good-hearted fellow,
Right.
right?
Right.
Had a compassionate heart for other beings,
Yes.
right? Um, so that's one problem with free will, which is that if God's actions are like based on his absolute perfect nature, right? Absolutely perfect nature. And given that God cannot like create an innocent child, let it live for 30 seconds and burn it for like 5 years
right.
brutally. And God cannot do that because of his absolute
Just
perfection. And
he
you're already saying,
he would do that just to show that he's in control. That's kind of the attitude that some people have.
yeah, I mean, some people like have a strange view of God, right? Like they believe in this
Right.
bizarre free will. Like I asked like one of the Christians who believe in free will, and is also a universalist, right, by the way. And I saw his interaction with an atheist at one point. And the atheist said like why does God not do such a horrible thing, right? And the Christian who believes in free will says God has no motivation to do that horrible thing, right? God has absolutely no motivation to do that.
Uh,
So, and the atheist would say, well,
mm,
that means he does not have the free will that
yeah,
you believe human beings do.
right.
It, like, if he has zero motivation to do a horrible thing, right, then he does not have that free will that human beings have, right?
Right.
And if God does not have that free will, then that free will is not a great making property,
Mm,
right? So justifying free will for human beings becomes harder
right.
from moral perspective because if you say that libertarian free will to human beings is a greater good, right? God does not want human beings to make evil choices, but God gives human beings libertarian free will because it is a greater good ultimately.
Hmm.
But if God does not himself have it, right? How is it a greater good then, right? If it's not even a great making property,
Mm,
right? So, I mean, that's one issue with free will. And by the way, this issue connects with like my view of punishment too.
mm,
So that's one major way why I don't believe in libertarian free will. I am personally cool with some of the compatibilist views, but I do not find even the compatibilist views plausible. Um, there is like the reason for that is like argument, a fantastic argument developed by Dirk Pereboom, right? And it's called the manipulation argument,
mm,
right? And he basically gives four cases, right? To argue against compatibilism. There are like many views of compatibilism, Wayne, like there is reason, responsiveness, and all that stuff. We can get into them if you want to right now, but do you want to? I want to ask you first because like compatibilism is like very, it gets a bit technical, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, yeah. Let's forego that for now. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, yeah. Let's
Um,
forgo that. Yeah,
I did want to ask you, it's like there seem to be there are issues on both sides, especially when it comes down to Arminian versus Calvinist.
yeah,
But the common response, and of course the great defenders of free will are the Armenians. But it's the fundamental contention from their perspective that love will never force itself on you. And I wonder how you respond to
yeah,
that objection.
yeah. Love won't force itself on you.
Yeah,
Like let me give you an example, right? Suppose God creates a being, and God creates a being such that he shall enjoy video games, music, and movies, certain kinds of music, video games, movies forever,
yeah,
and that's all he enjoys.
yeah,
So he does not enjoy sex or masturbation or any of the sins. He does not enjoy them at all.
yes, yes,
That person. He shall always, and that person is such a person. God made his nature such a way that he can be in this room and just play video games, listen to music, and just watch like TV shows, movies. And well, given he's in heaven, there are like infinite video games, right?
right,
Infinite
right,
movies, infinite TV shows.
yeah.
Um, he also gets like great, fantastic, delicious food every day. Okay. Now, what does it mean to say love does not force now? Well, God loved him. That's why he created him in such a happy state, and
Yeah.
he's happy in heaven. if someone says, well, the question of God does not force love on anyone does not even arise in this case
Hmm.
because the person's nature is such a way that he's automatically attracted to heaven.
Hmm.
Automatic, right? God made that person in such a way, right?
Hmm.
Now, if God made this person such a way that he gets enticed or tempted by certain things that are awful, right? Let's just assume God creates a puppy around this person.
Right.
And God gives this person a kind of another desire that is sadistic, right? That takes pleasure in causing suffering, actual suffering
Right.
to this puppy. And
Yeah.
the suffering that this puppy cannot bear. And then God sends this person to hell because he did torture the puppy. And then God says, I do not force love on. What? What does that even mean?
Mm.
What does that even mean? It's such a strange thing to say, to believe, right? Because forcing would only come in if the person's nature or desires are fundamentally different, that they do not want God, even though heaven is such a happy, joyous, delightful, exhilarating,
Yeah.
ecstatically beautiful,
Yeah.
wonderful, um, um, exalting, right? Gratifying, gladful, um, relaxing, calm, peaceful place,
Yeah.
right? If it's like someone's fundamental nature would have to just be opposite of heaven,
Mm.
so that God has to like force someone in heaven such that the person does not enjoy heaven. But then if the person does not enjoy heaven, does that mean what? Is he enjoying hell? Is the person enjoying hell? Right?
Mm.
Um, so it's uh, it's ultimately the objection of God does not force love on someone is a non-starter precisely because there is no need to force if something is just so wonderful, right? It's like if the food tastes fantastic, Wayne, you do not need me, you do not need to force that
Right.
food on me. I would automatically be to that food, right? So that's the issue with that objection of God does not force his love on anybody because good things are just intrinsically
Mm.
enticing,
Right.
right? Beauty is just automatically beautiful.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is I don't know, there's so many different ways you could put it, but to me it is like and it gets us kind of back into the whole area of agency, um,
Yeah.
and that is, does God, okay, that it appears, at least to me, on the face of it in Scripture, that God often contradicts or contravenes humans, various humans at various times and circumstances,
Yes.
contravenes and contradicts their quote will.
Yes,
They want
absolutely.
to do this, and God steps in and says, no, you won't.
No, you won't. Yes.
So to me, the argument that, and of course, it's kind of the C.S. Lewis argument, God says to you, thy will be done, the doors of hell are locked from the inside, all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
it's like you insist and you have this view that God will never by force himself. In other words, that it's kind of the meaning is kind of intervention or contradiction
Hmm.
of your choice, as it were, in a
Yeah.
corrective way, in a corrective and loving way. And I always think of, a loving father. He's not
Yes.
just going to let his little child do whatever they please, like run out into the middle of traffic. he's going to
Exactly,
intervene.
exactly.
Uh,
Yes,
so you can make, and that would be an irrational decision, obviously. And I think
yes,
we all are rational to irrational to one degree or another. We make horrible decisions again,
yes.
not based on have we really thought it through, and is it taking us toward the good and the best, etc. But will it bring me immediate pleasure, that kind of thing. But anyway, so that's and I'm kind of blown it up, but that's kind of the essence I'm asking is to address because I have dear Armenian friends who is
I
like
absolutely agree with you, Wayne.
yeah, yeah,
I agree with you, right? So you are absolutely right. My point is that God can, in from the start, make someone's desires a particular way, or God can like actually physically intervene, like a friend, a
right,
brother, like suppose
right,
if like a particular person suppose is annoying me, right? Let's just suppose now I do have pretty decent self-control, by the way. But if the person is particularly annoying, he's like his insults are really personal, really annoying or something.
right,
And suppose I take a baseball bat and I'm going towards him to like bash his face, right? And one of my friends just comes in, or a bunch of friends come in, they stop me.
yeah,
They just hold me, they take away my bat. They tell me we are not going to let you do that. We are not going to let you ruin your life.
right,
We are not going to let you do that. No matter what, how much you cry, no matter how much you are angry, you
yeah,
can cry. You can cry. You can cry all you want. You can cry for a while
yes,
because they know that after crying, I guess after crying, after a while, you get calm. You get chill.
yeah,
You try to focus on other things. You eat food. If you're hungry, you
right,
eat food or something, right? So they stop you, right, from like ruining your life in a way, right? And remember, ruining life in like, let's just assume that I did not have a desire to kill the person, but just like just bash him like one or two times with a bat or something, right? Baseball bat,
yeah,
not to kill him, like maybe break his leg or something.
yeah,
So technically, in that case, the punishment that I would get is still temporary, right? Because I did not like murder that guy. The punishment would be temporary, but still it would be like 5 years of jail or 10 years of jail or something, right?
right,
So even then, my friends did not think, oh, this dude has free will. I should just let him break the guy's leg, right? We should just let Rajat break someone's leg. Right? No, my friend stopped me from doing something horrible, right?
right,
They told me, they holded me, right? They made sure that I do not do it. They made sure that I'm calm,
yeah,
right?
because they
And
love
most decisions, if it's permanent, right? Like literally eternal or eternal hell or literally annihilation,
you,
right?
yeah, yeah,
I said the same thing to Cal, right? If like so Cal said to me, I think he believed in like our free will is like logically necessary or something. And I asked him, well, look, if you believe that someone can will themselves to permanent eternal torture, why can't someone just will themselves to destruction, annihilation?
right,
Right? And he thought it's a good objection, right? Like why not annihilation then?
right,
Right? Why is it just eternal torture?
right,
And I think one response he said is like human beings are like metaphysically necessary or something. And it's like, well, look, no, God created souls, right? It's not like God can, it's not like souls always existed. God did not create the souls, but souls always existed. It's not like that, right? That would be, well, if you are a Catholic, that would be a heresy.
yeah,
That would be a heresy.
yeah,
Like God creates the soul, right? So God can destroy the soul. It's obvious, right? I mean, just based on raw power, of course, given his absolute perfection,
right,
Cal would say, given God's love, he does not destroy even those in hell, right? Um, and I mean, sure, if you want to say that, but my point is, it's not exactly loving to see someone eternally tortured. It's not really love, right?
right,
So, um, Yeah, the free will people who believe in this stuff like either argue like free will is such a necessary for like finite beings like us, like logically necessary or like metaphysically necessary, and I say even if that is the case, the point is even if people have free will, the basic point is still this: God can stop a person from permanently ruining their lives, even if you grant such a free will,
Right.
right?
Right.
God can stop someone from annihilating themselves. God can stop someone from permanent eternal torture. I think one of the things that free will believers believe is that a person can corrupt their nature so much by their free will is that they absolutely do not enjoy anything in heaven.
Yeah.
Anything in heaven.
Yeah. Sounds like Lewis, C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, they do not enjoy anything in heaven. They only remain in hell, and they they enjoy nothing basically. They are just in absolute depression.
Yeah.
They
Right.
enjoy nothing. They are just sad and they are in absolute depression. They are hateful, violent, and sad, and that's it for them forever.
Right.
My view is that such a bizarre and pessimistic view, considering God himself is absolutely perfect and he will not metaphysically corrupt his nature permanently.
Yes.
Along with the fact that, well, I, I asked this to Carl, what about non-human animals? Do you think like a bonobo or an elephant will suffer in hell? Right. And I think he said, well, he believes that the animals, some animals, higher animals also have some sort of free will. And I thought, well, that's a bit bizarre. That's a bit bizarre. And also it's like even in reality, the permanent corruption of nature does not happen. Like people do not just free will themselves into such a permanently horrifying state,
Hmm.
right? Like we do not treat people with depression as, oh, they permanently corrupted their nature, so we should let them kill themselves if they want,
Right.
right, or something. That does not happen in reality, right?
Yeah.
Like a simple example that I would give is like music. I enjoy some of the songs that I listened to 15 years ago every week. How is it possible that by free choices I can corrupt my character so much that I stop enjoying the absolutely wonderful song that I love? How can I do that? It would be a significant brain injury, I guess, can do that, right? A significant brain damage can probably do that, but no, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's a stupid view that people can just free will by their free will just become so depressed, right? It's such a pessimistic view, right? And God does nothing about it,
Yeah.
right? Like why can't, here's the thing, right? Suppose God allows choices that are within range, like a box. But the moment someone is going out of the box, that means on the path of permanent destruction or permanent eternal suffering.
Right.
Just before someone reaches there, God stops that person,
Yeah.
right? God stops that person. I think that is a plausible thing.
Yeah.
That is a plausible thing God can easily do.
Yeah. Thankfully.
God can, there are various ways God can entice. It. So I mean, it's just a non-starter vein. Like a free will of defense is such a pessimistic view about like persons, human beings,
Hmm.
and given like Carl's view, I guess even for some animals, right, elephants and stuff, right? Like maybe they will go to hell according to his view. So yeah, I think the free will Arminian view is very, I would say it's a very depressing view of about reality, Wayne. It's like, I mean, atheists already believe that there is nothing in the afterlife. So if a person starves to death, or dies from a fatal disease, then that's the end of their story.
Right.
That's a pessimistic worldview, right? There is no ultimate peace for them. There is no ultimate justice. It is meaningless to say at the tomb, rest in peace,
Right.
because there is no peace. The person is just dead.
Yeah.
that they're destroyed. So
Yeah.
it's like you believe in such a wonderful being, infinite love, infinite power, infinite knowledge, such a wonderful being, and yet you believe in such a pessimistic view about reality that metaphysically God cannot save the souls.
Mm. Yeah.
With all the infinite power, you have a disappointing worldview. Right. With even with infinite power, you have such a disappointing worldview, right? And I love what David Bentley Hart in his book said. If Christianity is in any way true, then Christians dare not doubt that all shall be saved.
Mm. Yeah.
Right? To me, that's a powerful line. That's a fantastic line, right? Like I think Christians should be confident universalists, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a hopeful universalism. I always found it a very weird thing. Let's just hope God is not a monster, or let's just hope God is not a hopeless being who is crying that some people with the libertarian free will are like now absolutely and permanently depressed, and God cannot do nothing about it.
Right.
So it's like come on, man, like have some optimism in your life, you know. Like if you believe in God, you should. You
Yeah.
should.
That's right.
Right? You should. You
Yes.
absolutely should.
He has all the, power beyond conception. He has all
Yeah.
the love, the motivation beyond conception. And yeah, and all the ages to come. He's got eternity to accomplish, in a sense, the purpose, his desire, his heart,
Yes.
everything. I just don't. I just, it's kind of like we were talking before we started recording that, it's like I don't believe that Christians, for the most part, that we really understand what good is, what goodness is. And we
Yeah.
put a limit some way or another. We limit, maybe with our own lack of imagination, the goodness of God and just how good and kind and loving God
And powerful.
is. And powerful, exactly,
Powerful.
toward his
Right?
worst, even his worst enemy. And he commands us to love ours. And we turn around and then claim that he's going to, punish his forever. It just at some point it just doesn't make sense. But I think
Yeah, I mean,
Christians keep things kind of boxed in different theological categories, and they don't bring them together and say, hmm, there's something wrong here. This doesn't fit, you know?
yeah. Yeah, and I mean like the Cal's view, I think like the free will Arminian view is more like God is not even punishing them. It's
Yeah,
just it's like through their free will, they metaphysically corrupted their character so much that it's permanently corrupted now, and God cannot do anything about
right.
it but be
Yeah.
sad about it.
There is something
Literally.
impossible with God.
And like it's such a pessimistic view about reality, right? It's like, come on, right? Come on. Like even right now, this kind of stuff does not happen. We have fantastic medicine for all sorts of things, right? We have fantastic medicine for physical issues. We have fantastic medicines for mental issues, right? I mean,
Yeah,
like I have read and heard people who said that some of the medicines that like the therapists or like I think psychiatrists or neurologists provided them was fantastic. It really helped them,
right.
right? It really helped them deal with their anxiety or OCD or depression,
Yeah.
right? It's like so we like you think God's with infinite power cannot cure depression?
Right.
Even with infinite power, God cannot cure depression.
Mm. Mhm.
Like that's disappointing.
Not
That's
if
such
you
a
don't, not if you don't choose to let him do it. One of the things, Rajat, that's really, I don't know, it hadn't been that terribly long ago. It just dawned on me one day, as these ideas do sometimes, is,
yeah.
is, to me, one of the stories out of Scripture, out of the Gospels that illustrate this so wonderfully to me when Christ encounters the man possessed of a legion of demons. And first of all, you have to wonder what sort of choices did he have to make to become possessed of 1,000 demons? I'm sure that he wasn't making good decisions. So, so he brings himself into that horrific state of being. And what does Jesus do? He steps up to the man and he doesn't offer an invitation or call him to walk the aisle, and repent. He just walks up to him and delivers him like that because he loves the guy,
Yeah,
and he
yeah,
instantly delivered from the repercussions of all these horrible decisions that he's made. But Christ, out of his love, and he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Then why can't we use our imaginations to conceive of the possibility that even in his judgments that he can bring this kind of deliverance to people, uh, in the afterlife, if not in this life. So to me, it counters the whole argument that you've got to be open and Jesus is always going to ask your permission and or whatever. You see what I'm saying?
yeah,
Always
yeah, yeah, yeah,
free will.
yeah,
Where it's like the guy in Wave, maybe he had to. If again, I know you don't like the idea or the word or the phrase free will, and I don't either. But it's almost like he had ruined himself basically through. He had to have done it, I think, through bad decisions that
yeah.
to be possessed in this way and to be, I'm sure, mentally so messed up that Christ, though, because he is God in the flesh, for whom nothing is impossible, delivers the man.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And like just I want to say Cal is a good, great dude, right? Cal
Absolutely.
is our friend. He's a
Yes.
great dude. But I think right now with Catholicism, I think it's like he has to like affirm Catholic doctrine, right? So to be a Catholic, I guess. So he's I guess he's worried about um um reprimands or excommunication. But yeah, I guess he's worried about like heresy charges and stuff like that. So
We'll have
again,
to
I
have
guess
we'll have to have Cal on to to answer
yeah, yeah, perhaps someday. But yeah. So again, he's a good dude. I love him.
too.
He told me that like yesterday's chat, he told me that during our chat, like a lot of what I said makes sense to him, right? He understands where I'm coming from. He understands my perspective, right? So I love him, right? He's a great, wonderful guy, you know. So when it comes to like as you said about judgment, now we are talking about punishment. Your question about punishment.
Right.
So my view of punishment is not retributive, purely retributive in the sense that person deserves the suffering.
Right. Right.
My view of punishment is you can think of it as a restorative justice
Yeah.
and somewhat deterrence and a kind of public health view
Mm-hmm.
of quarantining, right? So ultimately, I believe that the attackers, the criminals, will suffer so that the victims can get some kind of peace, catharsis, because I think a lot of victims feel a lot of sadness if their attackers just if they're happy, right? Because attackers have not felt the suffering that the victims felt,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the victims want the attackers to at least feel the same amount of pain that the victims felt, right? So I can understand that. But remember, victims cannot say that the attackers deserve eternal torture, right?
Exactly.
Precisely because that's just not even from retributive perspective, it's not really equal, right?
Right.
Equivalent.
Right.
Precisely because the harm that the attackers did to the victim is finite,
Yes.
unless the victim believes that unless the victim is really irreparably harmed.
Yes.
But that's impossible. God would not allow someone to irreparably harm anyone,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Right. It's the same thing. Like I think Joshua Rasmussen, I was chatting with him one time, um, and he said like it's like suppose my kids are playing in a playground or a sandbox, right? And there is a black hole, and if a kid falls there, he will continuously falling and screaming forever. Like, I would not let my kids play there, right? I would not let my kids play there no matter how much you tell me to.
Right, right.
No matter how much I respect their free will, no matter how much I respect their desires and stuff. Because I mean, look, human beings and even animals are complex creatures with multiple desires,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
by multiple desires, I mean like, okay, suppose you stop me, Wayne, from like listening to a particular genre of music because you think it's extremely horrible for my mental health or something,
Right.
right? I can still listen to other kinds of music, right? I
Yes.
can still listen to like if you hate a particular metallic genre, I can at least listen to pop songs, rock songs, right? Country songs,
Yep.
classical music, right? From Mozart, Beethoven, and stuff like that. So it's not like it's not like I would like just immediately have a like a like I would immediately like destroy myself if you even stop this particular one desire of mine,
Right.
right? It's like no. So my view of punishment, like of course victim should feel some satisfaction, and then the attacker eventually should reconcile with with God and the victims.
Yes.
The attacker eventually and the victim eventually should have a positive relationship ultimately, eventually, right? That the victim forgives and the attacker is feels really a lot of sadness for
Right.
what they did. But remember, of course, the attacker and the victim knows that given the circumstances of the attacker, given the nature of the attacker, right? They know that, look, man, he could not have done otherwise, right? Like, I don't know if you know Joe Schmid. Have you heard of him? Majesty of Reason, Joe Schmid.
No, I think the name sounds familiar, but no.
Okay, so he's a philosopher. He's doing PhD in Princeton University, a fantastic student, like 4 by 4 GPA, very smart kid, very smart dude.
Yeah.
And he had a chat with Amy Karofsky. She's a necessitarian philosopher, as I said, told you. And
Right.
Joe Schmidt like asked, like talked about serial killers, right? Like Ted Bundy and like those.
Right.
And Amy Karofsky said, like it's not plausible that those serial killers, those psychopaths, people with antisocial personality disorders could have just done otherwise because they do not feel remorse, right? They do not feel compassion. It's
Yeah.
like, and this is like a kind of a consensus in psychology that extreme psychopaths or people with extreme antisocial personality disorder are have a brain structure or particular part of brain is just different than for a normal human being,
Right.
right? For a neurotypical human being,
Right.
right? And due to that, it's not plausible that Ted Bundy or those horrible people just could have done otherwise. Like Ted Bundy did not just decide, oh, um, I could live a wonderful life. I'm an intelligent person. Like Edmund Kemper had like 145 IQ or something. Like very smart dude. And it's not like Ed Kemper decided, oh, I can be a wonderful scientist in a laboratory earning a lot of millions of dollars or something, or I can be a murderer
Yeah.
and go to jail.
Yeah.
It's not like there was this careful deliberation, right? It's a lot of things influence people, their internal machinery and the external environment. Right?
Mm. Mm.
So to me, the punishment like just should not be eternal because that would be equivalent to God setting up someone for eternal hell.
Mm.
Right. And I think God setting up someone for eternal hell is just contradictory with God's absolute perfection, his love, his compassion, right? His justice,
Right.
his yeah. So my view of punishment is yeah, it's ultimately a restorative justice,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
It's not a retributive one. It's not purely retributive one, I guess I should say. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's, part of it is to bring reformation to the inner makeup of that person,
Yes.
bring
Yes.
healing, as it were, to whatever it is that's dysfunctional in their moral reasoning or or even physiologically, I mean, that,
Yes, yes.
that,
God
that,
will repair
yeah, yeah,
everyone eventually. God will
right.
repair everyone eventually.
But I guess one of the things, and I know we're going to have to stop, but it is the question of, and I think it's just like the cause is complex and nuanced, just like we have been taken by captive to do his will, that passage of scripture. It kind of, to me, and I brought this up before, it kind of, to me, it means that we are not simply rebellious sinners, but that we have been taken captive against our will, as it were, to do another's will, at least in the spiritual sense of things, but that's sort of functioning on the level of whenever we make bad decisions, whether it's a small thing or being a mass murderer. It's still, there are many things that factor into that, and God
Yeah.
alone can adjudicate
Yes. Yes.
all the nuances and things, etc., in a way. But the question again that I took forever to get to is responsibility. It's like, who's responsible? It's
Yeah.
always
So,
a
so
question.
about responsibility, I have what Dirk and Greg consider forward-looking view of responsibility rather than backward.
Yeah.
So Dirk and Greg do not believe in the kind of basic desert kind of responsibility, but they believe in some kind of like forward-looking responsibility view, right? So they would argue that um, um, responsibility should not be considered in a like the old school way, right? It should more be about like um, it should more be about public health and stuff like that, right? It's like, yeah, the psychopath is ultimately responsible, but he's not responsible in that basic desert sense. Like
Hmm.
the psychopath is indeed the cause of all that suffering,
Right.
right? The psychopath is the cause. But remember, the ultimate chain of causes goes toward the one who is the source of all,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Now, of course, God is now this now this I should mention this. Every Christian has to bite particular bullets, right? There are no views where there is no bullet to bite. Bullet biting is something like that has to be done. The best you can do is biting the least painful bullet,
Right.
right? So like Thomas J. Ord, have you heard of him? Thomas J. Ord. He's like an open theist and he does not believe that God is omnipotent, right?
Yeah.
So he says like God does not have the power to physically coerce people. So God also always is like saying to the person, please don't do it, please don't do it, like
Right.
just forever, right? I mean,
Right.
and the person can just keep doing horrible things, I guess, for a long time or forever.
Yeah.
That's his answer to the problem of evil,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
That God is just not powerful enough, right, to fix everything. My view is different. My view is that God has the power to fix everything. But the reason he does not save and fix everything right now is because there are certain greater goods, right? Like consider like certain greater goods of connection building, relationships. Maybe the bonds forged in suffering here on earth are so strong that they last forever,
Yeah.
right? The friendships formed last forever,
Right.
right? They are so good, they are so strong, right, that they last forever.
Yeah.
Maybe going through some level of suffering here is such a challenge that can bring great amount of pleasure, contentment, and satisfaction once you are in heaven,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Going through a lot here. It's like when you play, I don't know if you play video games or your children play video games, but sometimes people go through a challenge or hard journey to get a sense of satisfaction or get a sense of victory, right?
Right. Right.
Maybe that is the way, right?
Yeah.
So these are the greater goods,
Yes.
right? But ultimately, God has made every person such a way that they shall say that their life was worth it,
Mm.
right? Some atheists would say like, well, we are here without our consent, right? Some of the atheists would have problem with just God just creating in this way, right? But
Right.
consider this: if like 1 trillion years from now you retroactively consent, you say whatever happened in my life in the past was so important to me right now, like I'm so happy right now precisely because whatever happened in the past, right? And
Right.
I consent because I am satisfied in heaven right now. I'm so happy with
Yes.
all my friends here,
Yes.
all my pets, right? My dogs.
Right. Right.
Like God did not kill my dog,
Right.
right? God
Yes.
did not destroy my dog's soul, right? My pets are here, my friends are here, my video games are here, right? My garden flowers are here,
Yeah.
right? Like apocatastasis is the view that it's a cosmic restoration, right?
Yes.
It's a restoration of all the good things. It's repairing of all. So even those viruses and bacteria will not be harmful anymore in heaven, right? They would not harm anyone.
Mm.
The flowers will not be like, the lions will not be eating the deer alive, right? Causing immense suffering and pain.
Right.
All shall be wonderful. All shall be saved. It would be a great victory for God. And this is you universalism is a deeply important part of answering the problem of evil.
Mm.
Like, I cannot emphasize this enough.
Yes.
Like, my friends who are atheists believe that if were to become Christians or or theists, they will be universalists.
Yes.
Like, that's non-negotiable.
Yes.
Like I'm writing a book with my atheist friend, Universal Salvation and Animal Suffering,
Ah,
right?
interesting.
Um, Basically, the book will argue that without universal salvation, without apocatastasis, the problem of evil is just unsolvable.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
It's without universalism, it's not rational to believe in God.
Yeah.
At least the triomni, absolutely perfect, classical theistic or neoclassical one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think universalism is just necessary, right? When I was a theist, when I became a theist, Avain, I was a universalist already. And then I picked which religion made more sense, and well, Christian universalism was there.
Yeah.
So, so it's like, yeah, Christian universalism.
Uh,
Fantastic. By the way, Wayne, I want to show you this video of Jordan Daniel Wood, like this debate. I don't know if you watched it. It's such a beautiful debate, like a specific point, not the whole debate, it's a long debate, but the
uh,
specific point that Jordan makes about tradition, right? Because a lot of people who are like Catholics or like Eastern Orthodox, they're really worried about like tradition and stuff like that, right?
right. Yeah.
But Jordan says something important. Tell me if you can hear his voice. Let me play the video now.
On to the last point there, a few things.
Can you hear his voice?
Yes, I can.
Great, fantastic. Okay.
Well, I just have to say up front, the Hegelian synthesis. Um, the synthesis is a Greek word. It's a word that's used in Canon 4 of Constantinople II to clarify the hypostatic union. Because there it said that henosis is insufficient because it's vague and can be understood in many ways. So instead it says 3 times, you have to understand the hypostatic union according to synthesis. Hence, we get the composite person of Christ. The truth that the church not only teaches, but embodies, in Yves Congar's words, ongoing synthesis, and the meaning of tradition, is Jesus, a person. So we can't be anti-synthesis without including the synthesis who is the Word of God made flesh. After all, there is no other way that divinity and humanity can be one except as him. Surely that's a synthesis, just of a different sort. If, as say the 19th century Tübingen theologians would be okay with saying that the church is in some sense the ongoing incarnation, then it's a synthesis. I think there's a way in which epistemic humility can actually belie a little bit more of an arrogance, which says, surely we're done with the synthesis. You can't be done with a person, and certainly not the Word of God. The Word of God, according to section 10 of Dave Arabum, stands above the magisterium, as we know, and yes, is the sole interpreter. So there's a little bit of a tension there, hermeneutical circle, which is just plainly set out for us. I think that's as it should be. And I think a lot of conservative Catholics in this last pontificate have rediscovered that. After all, how could we do without the death penalty? When has it ever been taught that it's an intrinsic evil? It's an offense against human dignity, right? Or what about slavery? How many theologians in the pre-modern era said that it's an offense against the image of God to hold slaves? Well, two. St. Gregory of Nyssa did, also happens to be a Universalist, and sort of Blessed John Duns Scotus. All right, so how could they be so wrong for so long? And Leo the 13th comes along, says, well, that's not just evil.
Yeah, add Molina to that list, I think, too. Such a robust defender of
I'm mostly going off of not only Noonan's book, but also Christopher Kellerman, Father Kellerman's book, who says that his was not as strong as Scotus, or certainly not Gregory, who's the strongest, because he has certain cases. So he doesn't think it's per se evil, though he thinks it's functionally at that point, right? The Atlantic slave trade is not illicit. But that's not the teaching of Leo the 13th. It's not the teaching of Vatican II. It's not the teaching of St. John Paul II. According to whom it is per se evil, there is no mitigation there. How could they be so wrong for so long? How many people would have liked to know that in the intervening centuries? And the hundreds of thousands of people enslaved would have been nice to know. As Kellerman says at the end of his book, in no uncertain terms, say in the 16th century, it would have been a mortal sin for the slave to run away from the slave master, according to the magisterium. It is exactly the opposite from the 19th and 20th century. It's a mortal sin to hold a slave. So I think we need to be careful about saying like the Immaculate Conception is a paradigmatic case. I would think we need to do some justice to the actual liminal cases, which are far more revealing precisely because they're shocking. That's where you start to get into the real synthesis of the development of doctrine, because if we're not going to just do it syllogistically, and I know at the High Middle Ages, that's how they wanted to do it. We're going to make it explicit from implicit premises. That was an easy way to do it. It makes sense. It's abstractly far more cogent and doesn't shock us so much. Just isn't the way, in my opinion, that's not the way the actual life of the church, the ongoing synthesis, who is Christ in and as his body, has actually developed. So unless we're going to make our theories sort of superimposed on the actual life of the organism, the person of the body of Christ, who is the church, I think we should approach it the other way around. And that goes down to all kinds of stuff. I mean, right? We get the Latin Vulgate. Isn't that according to Trent, authentic text?
I still think it is.
You saw that?
Yes.
Did you enjoy it? Because it's such a fantastic stuff, right? I mean, it's
Right.
like
I'd watched that debate. I didn't remember that part though, so that's interesting.
yeah, it's like, yep. That is really important part. Like I recommend people who watch your channel to watch that debate. Jordan Daniel Wood is a fantastic theologian, philosopher, I would say. I had a chat with him, but unfortunately the chat, like my laptop before was like destroyed, so his his recording with me was gone, but it was such a great chat with him.
But
Yeah. He's a fantastic philosopher, yeah. So great.
well,
Yeah.
I think it's probably time for us to draw this session to an end. There are a lot of other things I'd love
Yeah, 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 of
to,
course, of
so we'll
course.
have to do it yet another time before too long. And just really appreciate you taking the time, Rajat. I know it's really late or very early in the morning, one of the two for you. Uh,
No, no, it's not late. It's cool. It's cool. That's my wake up time. Anyways, it's I think it's 1:27 p.m. here. So it's afternoon. It's cool.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's cool.
Gosh, that's amazing. Where are you?
I'm in Windsor, Canada.
Oh, well, that's why I've been thinking that you're still in India.
No, not right now. I'm in Ontario.
Okay. Well, I have to ask, why are you there? Because I wasn't aware of that at all. You're in school there?
Yeah, a master's degree in mechanical engineering.
Oh, wow.
That's
It's awesome. Well, gosh, that deserves a whole conversation in itself.
yeah.
Well,
Thanks.
Rajat, thank you again. It's always
Thank you.
delightful and challenging and provocative in a good way to hear your perspective and your thoughts.
I'm glad. I'm glad, man. I'm
Yeah.
glad. Just before you end the video, I want to recommend people to read a book called God, Suffering, and the Value of Free Will by Laura Ekstrom. She's a fantastic academic philosopher. I highly recommend her book. She's an atheist, but when you read her book, you would realize that universalism is the only way to solve the problems that she presents in that book. That book is released in like 2021. It is an acclaimed book in philosophy.
And how do you spell the last name again? Do you know?
And Laura Ekstrom, Laura, Laura
Okay.
Ekstrom, Ekstrom, Ekstrom.
Okay.
Ekstrom.
Okay. Very good. I'm going to try to remember to put links both to Jordan Daniels' debate and these books that you've mentioned in the description so that people can find them easily.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So, yeah. Well, again, thank you. And I look forward to next time, Rajat, very
Thank you.
much. And
Thank you, man.
hopefully see you again soon.